guys, Fla'nel here. Finally, we're doing this. This is the final part of this making of my Evelynn's cosplay. Well, at least the costume part. This part is certainly the one that people kept on asking me about the most with the wig. So let's go and see how I made my Evelynn's clothes from the Baddest. First of all, the only references I had at the time were the fan art, but also the music video more that was released while I was working on my cosplay. And in this video, they changed the position of the cloth that has the rhinestones and its color. So I decided to mix up both of the concepts, keeping the length and color of the Baddest ones, but going for the middle finger for the cloth with rhinestones. What I needed to do those clothes were, first, black warbler. That is a material that can change form thanks to the thermoforming process, which is why I also needed a heat gun. Then there is more basic stuffs like scissors, brass fasteners, silver paint, spray paint, but classic acrylic paint can do the trick too, and rhinestones. Oh, and anything pointy, pin, pen or seam ripper, just be sure that it's thin. Little informations before starting, I'm calling this the first part, this the second part, and this the third part. Now that it's said, let's go. I started by basically rolling my finger on the warbler, starting by the part closer to the palm, to know how much warbler was necessary. That is also why when people asked me if I was doing commissions, I told them that it would be difficult to do it for someone else, since I was doing it directly on my hand. And I guess now you are here, so hello! Once I knew what size I needed, I cutted the warbler, ending up with this little piece that I then heated up with the heat gun. I went slowly, heating it enough to change its form without burning my skin. I put it on my finger, rolling it around it, and waiting for it to cool down and take the shape of my finger. I cutted the extra piece and repeated the process until it looked like a far too large ring on my finger. Know that 2 pieces of warbler can fuse if heated enough. Just don't do it on your hand. Take the time to do it on a safe surface and maybe with gloves. Don't do like me, I'm not human, those rules don't apply to me. I then took the far too large ring that I obtained and drew directly on it the shape of this first part. I kept it longer so that I could see where the second piece would end on. Once I liked the shape, the next step was to cut it. Again, I kept it a bit longer as I said, and slowly adjusted it to the size I wanted. Once it was cutted, I tried it again to be sure the size was good. I felt a bit restrained in it, so I started to heat it up again, placing it back on my finger and moving it a bit so that it would enlarge the ring. This needed to be larger on one hand for me to be at ease, but most of all so that the brass fasteners that will arrive later could actually have the space to exist without hurting me. Once it was adjusted as I needed, I restarted the same process for the second part. Started by rolling my finger, then cutted the good size of warbler, but this time not closing it as a ring, just bending it enough so that it takes half of the finger. I also wore the first part during most of the process of the second, to be sure that it would be able to go on it. I drew again on this second piece and, well, you know, cutted the extra. Again, I kept it longer than the final result to be sure that the last part would fit on it. The shape seemed to be good, so now was the time to mark where the brass fasteners would go. I first marked it on the upper part and then tried to match those 2 marks with 2 others on the lower part, aka the first part. The marks were done, I just had to create the holes now. I used 2 techniques here. The first was using a pin first to create a little hole in the warbler while it was still hard. Then enlarge it thanks to the seam ripper and the pen. and use a brass fastener to make sure the hole was large enough to receive it later. Second option was to hit again the Warbler, just slightly for the hole to be easier to do, this time directly using the seam ripper and the brass fastener. I kept on switching between those two techniques because the first one tended to hurt my fingers when done too many times, but the second one was risky because when I hit the Warbler a bit too much, it just deformed the whole thing. If you're doing this, I guess it will be up to you to decide which technique you want to use. The 4 holes now done, I just added the brass fastener and here it was! The first half of the claw was done. Still it wasn't moving enough to my taste, so I reheated it just a little bit so the holes would enlarge themselves when I'm moving it. Again, be careful not to hit it too much, this time they're still involved and you don't want hot steel on your finger. I adjusted some details to allow more movements. For example, I shortened the part that I kept longer at the beginning because it kept the second part from moving fully. Okay, last but not least, the third part. Again, roll my finger, this time making it longer than the other ones, and hit it before putting it on my finger to morph it while wearing the 2 other parts. The advantage for this part is that the part that you need to heat up the most is not touching your finger, so you can just roll the tip of the Warbler after you've heated it to obtain your claw. And when it's hot, you can also cut it easily, so making the claw form is easy. The part where I needed to be careful was under the finger, because if I kept it too long, this wouldn't let me move my finger freely. And since this part now is basically retelling what I said for the other parts of the ring, now is my time to explain why I chose to make those claws in Warbler. At first, I wanted to do it with foam, but knowing my delicacy, I went for Warbler knowing at least those wouldn't break easily even more during conventions. Yes, because even though I'm doing Evelynn, this doesn't mean that I'm a very delicate person. Or I should say that I'm really clumsy. That would be more accurate. So, back to the claws again. I made the holes and placed the brass fasteners, and the base of the claw was now finished. As you can see, it moves really well, giving me space to even close my hand. Next step here was to paint it to obtain the same result as the one you see right now next to the one I just finished. And obviously to repeat the process for each freaking finger. That was really long, but also fun. Oh, and this is what it looks like when it's not worn nor painted, and now what it looks like once it's painted. I glued the rhinestones on the middle finger thanks to neoprene glue. To be sure that those stones wouldn't fall easily, I covered them with transparent nail polish. Also, since I took references from both the official art and the More music video, there were no rhinestones under the finger, so good point for me and gaining time. And big up to Kaz that helped me to put glue on the rhinestones so this would go faster. In the end, the brass fasteners kept hurting me even after enlarging the rings, so I just decided to glue little pieces of fabric on them for the inside parts, and this was immediately more comfortable to wear. And here's the final result! For a first time doing those entirely by hand, I'm really proud of it. I might have to redo them if I want to do the More version of Evelynn at some point, since Riot keeps on changing her clothes and this even only for the Baddest version of her. I'm begging you, Riot, please, stop changing her clothes. But still, I like those a lot. They are so fun to wear and I'm not afraid of breaking them, and this makes me really, really happy. And with this video, the costume is now fully done. I really love the final result of the costume. I already made a little shooting of it just after finishing it, and it was truly a lot of fun. And if you want to see all those pictures, they are available on my Instagram, Twitter, and even Facebook, so you can go check it out. There's a last part to cover, and you've guessed it, I'm talking about the wig. When I'm recording this, I still don't know if this will be the next video or if it will be the one just after. But still, if you're watching this when it's just out, you won't have to wait for too long. If you want to know when the next videos will be out, go follow me on my social medias. Until then, love you all and see you next time!